I have always known that destiny had something extraordinary planned for me, a path woven with challenge, pride, regret, and ultimately redemption. I remember that fateful morning as clearly as though the sun had just risen over the dewy plains of my homeland. I awoke with a singular thought blazing in my mind. I would become the keeper of all wisdom in the world. The ambition burned within me like a fire that would not be quenched. And I set out on a journey that would transform not only my fate, but the fate of every soul who ever sought understanding. From the moment my many eyes first opened to the world's splendor, I was captivated by the brilliance of its knowledge, every whispered secret carried on the wind, every story etched into the bark of ancient trees, every lesson passed down by elders in the villages. Each was a treasure waiting to be claimed. I traversed vast landscapes, from the lush, verdant expanses of towering forests to the humble, sun-kissed clearings where life bloomed in vibrant clusters. My nimble legs carried me through bustling markets and along winding paths as I collected every scrap of wisdom I could find. I listened to the solemn words of wise women and the exuberant tales of playful children, storing each piece of insight as though it were a shimmering orb of light. In my heart, I believed that by hoarding all the wisdom, I would become not only the smartest creature on earth, but also the most powerful, an embodiment of perfection that none could surpass. I began this ambitious quest with relentless determination, venturing deep into the realms of the unknown. Every step I took was guided by a singular obsession: to gather every piece of wisdom scattered across the vast tapestry of life and confine them, piece by piece, within a single, sacred vessel. This vessel, a humble pot fashioned from clay and adorned with intricate swirling designs, reminiscent of ancient symbols passed down through generations, became my most prized possession. To my eyes, it glowed faintly with a light that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the world, a constant reminder of the precious knowledge it was destined to contain. As I journeyed from one place to another, I encountered countless souls, each carrying their own unique insights and revelations. I was welcomed by the gentle smiles of elders who recounted tales of long-forgotten traditions, listened in awe to the fervent explanations of merchants, describing the subtle complexities of their craft, and absorbed the spontaneous poetry of youth as it spilled forth in playful laughter. Every encounter was a stepping stone on my path, each conversation a bead strung onto the necklace of wisdom I was creating. I do not recall a single moment when I ever doubted my quest. My purpose was as clear as the brilliant midday sun, and every whispered secret and every shared truth became fuel that propelled me ever onward. The weight of my ambition, however, soon began to manifest in unexpected ways. For as I accumulated these orbs of wisdom, each one a beacon of insight entrusted to me, I grew convinced that they would soon grant me unparalleled power. I imagined a future where I reigned supreme over all, a solitary guardian of knowledge whose mind would be an inexhaustible reservoir of truth. And so, with my heart swelling with pride and my mind alight with visions of greatness, I resolved to protect this treasure at all costs. No other soul, I reasoned, should ever be granted the privilege of such boundless enlightenment. To ensure the safety of my hard-earned wisdom, I declared that it must be hidden away from prying eyes, locked away in a place that only I could reach, a sanctuary high above the reach of mortal men and mischievous children. I selected, with meticulous care, the tallest, most venerable tree in all the land, its bark scarred with the passage of countless seasons, and its branches reaching toward the heavens, like the fingers of ancient gods. Believing that the height would serve as both a sentinel and a shield, I determined to ascend this living giant with my treasured pot tied securely around my belly, for I was convinced that such an arrangement would keep my prized possessions safe from those who might seek to pilfer its secrets. The climb was arduous and far more challenging than I had ever anticipated. My legs, though many and nimble, struggled to support the added burden of the pot, laden with the collective wisdom of countless souls. Each branch I grasped and every foothold I found was a battle against the unyielding forces of gravity and my own overweening pride. The pot, heavy with the delicate orbs of light that represented the myriad insights I had so carefully collected, jostled and banged against my legs, a constant reminder of the burden I had chosen to bear alone. As I climbed higher, the world below receded into a hazy tapestry of greens and browns, and the very air seemed charged with a mixture of anticipation and the quiet rustle of ancient secrets. Every movement was measured with a determined caution, my heart pounding in my chest as the realization of my own arrogance slowly set in. I had embarked on this quest, fueled by the desire to become the sole possessor of wisdom. Yet here, amidst the crude challenges of nature, I began to sense that perhaps true wisdom was more than just an accumulation of isolated truths. I recall, with a sting of regret still sharp in my memory, the moment when I first heard a voice of gentle reproach from below. As I fought against the strain of the climb, struggling with the uneven weight of the pot that clattered against my legs, I became aware of a quiet murmur riding on the wind, a soft, almost imperceptible call that pricked at the edges of my consciousness. It was the voice of my own flesh and blood, of my young offspring who looked upon my endeavor with untainted clarity. I had expected admiration or even envy at my bold undertaking, but instead, what reached me was a simple suggestion, a word of advice delivered in a tone as innocent as the morning dew. The words, though softly spoken, struck a chord within me. I should tie the pot to my back, rather than let it hang from my belly. In that single, unassuming statement, I recognized the stark contrast between genuine wisdom and the foolishness of my pride. It was a truth so plain and yet so profound that it seemed to ripple through the fabric of my very being. The realization cut deep, a whisper of humility against the roaring tide of my ambition. I found myself paralyzed by a moment of introspection as I contemplated the irony of it all. The creature who had amassed such a vast store of wisdom could not see the simple solution offered by the one closest to my heart. For a moment, I experienced a cascade of conflicting emotions: disappointment in myself, embarrassment at my own hubris, and a profound sorrow for what my selfish pursuit had cost me. I had believed myself to be infallible, destined to stand alone atop a pinnacle of knowledge. Yet here I was, humbled by the tender counsel of my own kin. The ascent, already fraught with physical strain, became an internal journey as well, a struggle between the inflated ego of a collector and the soft, resilient voice of truth. I adjusted the way I bore the pot as instructed, shifting it from my belly to my back. The difference was instantaneous and almost miraculous. The weight was now evenly distributed, and I felt a fleeting relief, as though the burden of pride itself had lessened. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to savor this small victory, to acknowledge that perhaps wisdom, at its core, was not about isolation, but about the willingness to listen and to change. Yet even as this realization began to take root, a bitter pride swelled within me. Could it be that the simplicity of a child's insight could outmatch the years of effort and struggle I had invested in my grand design? The thought festered within me, mingling with the sting of humiliation and the weight of responsibility that now pressed upon my already burdened spirit. But there was no time to linger on such reflections, for I had reached the crest of the mighty tree, a place where the world unfolded beneath me in a tapestry of breathtaking beauty and unimaginable scope. At the pinnacle of my journey, where the sky met the earth in a dazzling embrace of light and shadow, I paused and surveyed the world below. There, spread out like a vast quilt of interwoven lives and stories, were the communities that had once entrusted me with their wisdom. I saw in the distant hustle and bustle of village life the faces of those who had shared their truths with me, and I felt a pang of regret, an acknowledgement that in my obsessive quest for mastery, I had taken from them something sacred. The pot, heavy and resplendent with accumulated brilliance, pulsed against my back, each beat a silent echo of the innumerable voices it contained. And, as I looked upon it, a wave of intense emotion surged within me, a tumult of anger, sorrow, and an overwhelming sense of self-reproach. It was in that moment of profound clarity that I realized the truth which I had so desperately sought to avoid. Wisdom is not a solitary treasure to be locked away in the confines of one proud heart, but a living, breathing gift meant to be shared among all people. In the throes of my internal conflict, as the cool breeze of the high branches whispered ancient truths and the rustling of leaves sang of long-forgotten legends, I made a decision that would forever alter the course of my life and the lives of many others. Overcome by the revelation that my selfishness had tainted the very essence of what I had so cherished, I allowed my emotions to overwhelm my reason. With a cry that was equal parts despair and defiance, I hurled the sacred pot from my perch atop the towering tree. I watched, almost in slow motion, as it tumbled through the air, a fragile, doomed vessel carrying the collective wisdom of countless souls. Time seemed to stretch, the moment drawn out into an eternity of regret and inevitability, as the pot shattered upon the hard earth below, its fragments scattering like droplets of iridescent rain. Each shard shone with the light of knowledge, spinning away on the winds of change and dissolving into the expanse of the world. The once united reservoir of all wisdom was shattered, its pieces now destined to be found, embraced, and built upon by every creature that sought to learn, to understand, and to grow. In that instant, I understood the full magnitude of my folly and the profound truth that had always been hidden in plain sight. Wisdom, when hoarded, withers in the loneliness of isolation, but when spread among many, it blossoms into a force that can heal, inspire, and transform the world. As I slowly descended from the heights of that ancient tree, each step was weighted not only by the physical toll of the climb, but by an emotional burden that seemed impossible to cast off. The journey back to the earth, the vast realm of interconnected lives, was a pilgrimage of introspection and reluctant acceptance. Every footfall reminded me of the irretrievable moment when I had cast aside the chance to hold on to pride and instead allowed the pure, unbridled light of shared wisdom to illuminate the darkness of my conceit. I trudged through the dense undergrowth and over rocky paths, every movement an echo of the lessons that now resonated within my soul. The wind carried softly murmured voices from the shattered fragments of the pot, whispers of countless people, each echoing the dreams, fears, and hopes that had been confined for too long in a vessel of greed. With each step, I felt the stirring of change within me, a gentle metamorphosis unfolding as I finally embraced the warmth of humility and the bittersweet joy of collective understanding. Days turned into nights, and nights into a tapestry of lived experiences that spread across the horizon like the intricate patterns on a beloved cloth. I became a wanderer, roaming the lands I once believed to be mine alone, now seeking solace and redemption in the company of those I had once viewed solely as sources of inspiration. In the quiet hours before dawn, I would sit beneath the wide, open sky and listen to the soft serenade of crickets and distant chatter, their voices melding into a symphony of life's eternal truths. I wandered along riverbanks where the water shimmered like liquid starlight, and I observed how the current carried not just the water, but also fragments of stories and memories, each one a piece of the collective wisdom that I had once selfishly coveted. I spoke with villagers whose eyes were alight with the spark of hope, of who had found strength in the shared insights of generations past. And I listened as they recounted their own journeys, each tale a stitch in the great fabric of existence. With every story shared, every smile exchanged, I felt my spirit grow lighter, liberated from the shackles of pride that had once bound me so tightly. In time, as the seasons shifted and the land transformed with the rhythm of nature, I came to understand that my life, once consumed by an obsessive quest for solitary greatness, had blossomed into a celebration of unity. The lessons I learned in those fleeting, heart-wrenching moments atop the ancient tree and in the quiet solitude of my descent became the very bedrock of my new identity. I no longer saw wisdom as a trophy to be possessed, but as an ever-flowing river of shared insights, a living entity that nourished the parched hearts of those yearning for enlightenment. Every day I encountered signs of this transformative force, the gentle nods of strangers whose eyes met mine in silent acknowledgement of a shared understanding, the joyous laughter of children whose uncomplicated questions breathed new life into old truths, and the tender expressions of gratitude from elders who recognized that the knowledge they had once guarded so fiercely was now healing and inspiring a new generation. In the soft glow of twilight, as the boundaries between shadow and light blurred, I would reflect on the path that had taken me from solitary ambition to communal reverence, my heart swelling with the bittersweet knowledge that I had once been a prisoner of my own vanity. I roamed the countryside, my steps guided by an inner compass that had grown unerringly true with each lesson learned. I became a humble storyteller, a wandering chronicler whose words flowed as freely as the winds that had scattered the remnants of the pot so long ago. In the quiet moments of introspection, I recalled the aching loneliness of my earlier years, the isolation of a mind that clung too tightly to its own arrogance, and I vowed to never again allow such pride to blind me to the beauty of collective wisdom. I found solace in the rustle of leaves that spoke of days long past, and in the gentle murmur of streams that carried the whispered voices of the forgotten. Every encounter, every shared piece of a dream, transformed me further, washing away the bitter stains of hubris, until nothing remained but the pure, unadulterated truth that all wisdom was meant to be shared. I embraced the interconnectedness of life, recognizing that each soul I met was a vital note in the grand symphony of existence, a note that resonated with the same desire for understanding, for connection, for the light of knowledge to banish the darkness of ignorance. I traveled through villages adorned with colorful patterns and danced amidst the soft glow of sunset, each day an opportunity to gather new stories and to impart what I had learned. I listened with rapt attention as the elders spoke of traditions older than memory, and as the young, with eyes still bright with wonder, asked questions that sparked reflections I had never dared to consider. It was in these moments of sincere exchange that I found redemption, a release from the burden of holding every secret to myself. I realized that the scattering of the pot, which once filled me with acute regret, had instead liberated me from the constraints of ego and self-imposed isolation. Each fragment of that shattered clay now lay hidden in the hearts of countless beings, a living legacy that grew richer with every retelling, every lesson learned anew. And as I journeyed from one place to another, the shared brilliance of these experiences wove itself into the very fabric of my soul, making me a repository not of hoarded knowledge, but of a truth far more profound. Wisdom, in its purest form, flourishes through connection and compassionate dialogue. With time, I came to see that the path I once trod alone had transformed into a vibrant highway of communal discovery, a vibrant tapestry of human endeavor, creativity, and love. The voices of those I had encountered along the way became my constant companions, their shared insights forming a chorus that lifted me higher than any solitary ambition ever could. In every smile, in every tear, in every quiet moment of reflection, I recognized that the true measure of wisdom lay not in exclusive ownership, but in the generosity of spirit that comes from embracing the world's diverse truths. I learned that the road to enlightenment is neither a solitary ascent nor a destination to be reached by a single soul. Instead, it is a journey undertaken together, a winding path paved with the contributions of many, each step as vital and luminous as the next. I allowed myself to be vulnerable, to lean into the support of those whose hearts beat to the rhythm of shared understanding. And in doing so, I found that my own soul could shine brighter than I had ever imagined. Now, as I continue to traverse this vast, wondrous landscape, every heartbeat is a reminder of the journey that has brought me to this moment, of the pride that once threatened to eclipse every other emotion, of the piercing clarity that shattered my illusions, and of the transcendent beauty that emerged when I finally surrendered to the power of collective wisdom. I am a traveler, a seeker, and above all, a humble guardian of truths that belong not to me alone, but to every living being who dares to dream of a brighter future. I live with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that my life, once defined by a desperate need to control all that was sacred, has blossomed into a legacy of shared learning and unconditional love. I bear the marks of my past mistakes not as scars of shame, but as emblems of transformation, each one a cherished reminder that the light of wisdom shines brightest when it is allowed to illuminate the hearts of all. And so, I journey on, buoyed by the gentle rhythm of nature and the resounding chorus of voices that fill every corner of the earth. Every step, every whispered lesson, every shared moment of beauty is an affirmation that I am, at last, truly free. A free being no longer imprisoned by the fear of inadequacy, but empowered by the knowledge that all wisdom is most potent when it is freely given, when it connects hearts in a vast network of understanding, and when it lights the way for others to find their own path in this intricate, boundless tapestry of life. I have learned that true wisdom is not measured by how much one can accumulate, but by how deeply one can share and how generously one can listen. I walk this path with a humble heart and an open mind, forever grateful for the voices that guide me and the countless souls who share in the creation of a world where knowledge, in all its myriad forms, is a gift to be celebrated by every living creature. This is my story, a tale of ambition, folly, redemption, and hope, a living testament to the transformative power of shared wisdom that continues to shape me every day as I strive to honor the legacy of every voice that has ever whispered its truth to me on this endless, wondrous journey.